So the next object here is the bridge tool. And bridge is not something that I ever use, but I can kind of describe what it does. In a single object that you have, if you select two edges and you hit the bridge tool, it will kind of fill in between those edges. So this can be useful for if you have holes in your mesh. And let's go ahead and see what happens though if we have something like this. And if then I select two kind of adjacent edges and then hit bridge, it will do the calculations to kind of fill that face in. There's another kind of way to go about filling, it's called fill hole, and that's what I usually use. So if I have something like this, I can then go to my mesh drop down menu here and say fill hole. Oh, I have to have my object selected and go to mesh and fill hole, and it does the same thing. But bridge, I guess, allows you to do that application a little bit more precisely. So the next tool we have are add divisions. So this is if you've already started to manipulate this primitive. So you no longer have access to, and we already have, so I'm pretty sure we won't have the node, and we have already done too many operations to this. We no longer have the node that allows us to subdivide this primitive kind of initially. So using add divisions is a way that you can automatically add more detail to your model by adding a number of edges. And you can kind of increase or decrease, and it will like multiply the amount of detail that you're adding. Okay. The multi-cut tool allows you to cut in edges around your model and it will snap to vertices or onto edges here. And so it allows me to maybe like cut this, and if I hit return, it'll allow me to kind of cut my faces. To add edges to my object. So now what I have here actually is a combination of quads and tris. And so something that I guess I haven't gotten into yet are maintaining edge loops around your model. And an edge loop is edges that create a loop around your mesh. So let me go ahead and create one free form here using the multi-cut tool. And so now I've created a loop around my object, which allows me to double click on this loop. It understands that edge loop. And this is just a really good way, this is like proper flow around your mesh, is to be modeling with these edges to maintain edges in loops around your model. So now this isn't always possible, and it's not possible with tris. If I go ahead and let's see if it will understand this. If I go ahead and kind of cut, it might understand this. Cut this edge, cut an edge loop around this model, cutting through the tris. It still recognize that as an edge loop. Okay, good, it does. But something like, well, maybe I should get into this edge loop tool now that we're kind of talking about edges, edge loops. Let me go ahead and delete this sphere. Another way, and the easiest way to add edge loops to your model, is to use the edge loop, insert edge loop tool. And you can find that under mesh tools here, and it allows you to kind of drop in edge loops around your model wherever you'd like. So if I'm dealing with this model though, with these tris here, I don't think it's going to understand how to insert an edge loop around. And here we can kind of get a sense of this. Because we have a try here, a face that is 3 sides, we can't maintain an edge loop. And so if I insert an edge here, what I've done now is I've created, this is still okay because I've created, these tries are now quads, but if I continue to kind of do this, I might end up with 5-sided faces, and I don't want to have anything with 5 sides. So that's why you want to maintain kind of edge loops around your model. It's not always possible, like this sphere, wherever a bunch of tries kind of come together, it's hard, it's doesn't recognize how to insert an edge loop around something like this. But it does recognize, and you can kind of see right there, I tried to insert an edge loop and it doesn't see how to kind of continue that loop around this vertice here. But if I go ahead and double click on any of these edges, that recognizes that these are edge loops and they're all connected. And so this is just good flow for your model to always kind of maintain edge loops. So we just went into like one of these tools here under the mesh tools kind of early, but only because it's a tool that I use like very frequently in order to add subdivisions, specific subdivisions to my models. Go ahead and delete. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this from my outliner here. Let me go and create another cube. So the multi-cut tool is a way that you can cut individual faces and add edges to faces. The target weld tool allows you to select components and then meld them together. What I mean by that is if I am in edge mode here and I have target weld selected and I hover over this edge, I select this edge and I can pull it down to this edge and it's going to collapse those 2 edges at the spot of the last edge that I selected. Okay, so it merges components together. That's what target weld does. Now you can do this. Let me add some divisions here to this cube. Go into object mode and add divisions. And this is something to mention. It is important what mode you're in. If I'm in face mode and I just have this face selected and I add divisions, I'm just adding divisions here. And here's a good example of a 5-sided object, a 5-sided face. Okay, so this does not maintain edge loops around the mesh, and so it could cause problems later on. One of those problems being if I have vertice mode selected and I pull this vertice out, this face really needs to have an edge here, right? So Maya doesn't really, it's kind of making a determination on how to resolve what this form is, but faces are supposed to be flat, and here we have a face that doesn't have, that is not flat, and so it's a little bit tricky to kind of understand how to render or resolve the actual form of this face. Okay, so that's why you want to maintain kind of edge loops and four-sided faces on your mesh. I've never used Connect or Quad Draw. Let's hover over and see what it does. Connects the selected polygon components by inserting an edge between them. Okay, and Quad Draw is a tool to retopologize your mesh. Both of these I'm not going to get into right now. You can feel free to look at this help video down here to find out what those two do. I know that we will be retopologizing meshes later on in next week, actually, using a different program, but I think here is another tool for that. I guess at the bottom of this modeling toolkit we have some move settings that allows you to manually click and edit the pivot instead of hitting the D key. Again, we have some of the same functions that we've been able to access elsewhere. Here we have them again here. And so that's pretty much it for the modeling toolkit. When we come back, so why don't you go ahead, open up Maya, practice everything that we've done here, try to model something really basic using some of these basic tools. We have a lot more mesh tools that we can get into um, that I want to make you aware of, and so we'll do that in subsequent videos.